Joining me now, Major General Bob Scales is retired from the U.S. Army. He's also a Fox News military analyst. Van Hipp is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army. Gentlemen, good to have you here today. Welcome. General Scales, you know, we're seeing a little bit of back and forth sort of PR on this issue in the media, and you see this New York Times interview. Now, just yesterday, there was a question about whether or not General McChrystal might be not able to follow through on what he believes should happen on the ground, adding troops, and he has expressed that he thinks that needs to happen fairly quickly. How do you reconcile what he's saying now with what happened, you know, over the course of this week?
Well, first of all, Martha, I know Stan McChrystal. Stan McChrystal is a good soldier, and he will be loyal to the commander-in-chief. So all that give and take earlier in the media about him considering resigning or retiring, I think is way wide of the mark. The other thing is it's come down to making a key decision by the administration. They can either listen to the generals or they can listen to this new bow wave of sentiment, particularly political sentiment, that the cost of this war is too high. By cost, I mean the sticker shock that comes with the numbers that McChrystal is going to offer up tomorrow, and the political cost of continuing a war that's increasingly less popular with the American people.
I mean, it really comes down to one thing, though. Either we have to defeat the Taliban in Afghanistan for the security of that area and for our own country, or we don't. Let me bring in Van Hipp on this. Van, your thinking is that there's some kind of a rift going on between the Vice President, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton about whether or not this is a Taliban fight or whether it's, you know, sort of a hold back a little bit and strategic drone kind of fight to take out specific targets.
That's right, Martha. There's been this debate going on, and I think Hillary Clinton's right. We got to take out the Taliban. Don't forget, they were the ones who've always given shelter to al-Qaeda. What's required right now, though, and I think this is very important, it's time for this president to lead, to support General McChrystal, to support the troops on the ground. I'm very concerned when our troops and even when our allies see the vacillation that's going on right now. It sends the wrong message not only to our troops, and particularly when you couple what happened last week with the missile shield, which we need to combat the threat of the Shahab missiles from Iran. It sends the wrong message to our troops, but it sends the wrong message to our allies, our NATO allies, many of them who are getting a little wobbly right now, and also the Pakistani intelligence apparatus. We've always had some problems there. They're always trying to pick a winner. It sends the wrong message. Now is the time to get tough. And instead of going on the apology tour at the United Nations, I wish this president would go to NATO and shore up support to NATO and send a loud and clear message that we're going to fight to win in Afghanistan.
You know, General Scales, we all remember President Obama criticizing the Bush administration for saying that they were going to take their orders from the generals on the ground, because President Bush always said in Iraq, whatever the generals tell me they need, that's what I'm going to give them. But now you have a situation where President Obama has you know, kept in place General Petraeus, given him a larger sphere of control, and brought McChrystal into this Afghanistan job. So I think the reason that these questions are raised about whether or not McChrystal would stay in this job is, you know, you brought me in here, Commander-in-Chief, knowing what I wanted to do. So if you're not going to let me do what I feel is right, why would I stay?
Well, first of all, Martha, let's be clear. The president hasn't said no to his generals yet. I think what it's come down to now is a numbers game. 40,000 troops to this administration is a lot of troops to add to the 22,000 he's already added to Afghanistan, and perhaps it may be something less than that. But let's be very clear. I mean, I agree with Van that it's time to back the generals, but let's also be clear that the administration has yet to say no to the generals.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, it goes back to my original question, Van, and that is, what's the goal? What is the goal in Afghanistan? Is the goal to remove the Taliban? And if so, at that point, do you talk about numbers, or do you talk about what needs to happen and how many people that need to, you know, what kind of power you need to achieve that goal?
Martha, I think the goal is exactly what it was after 9/11, to make sure that the Taliban is not in a situation where it can reconstitute itself in Afghanistan. And what's happening right now, there's a guy on the ground, I think this is a big story, a guy by the name of Mullah Abdullah Zakir. Who is he? He's the top lieutenant for the Taliban in the southern part of Afghanistan, who is a thorn in our side and causing more problems than probably anybody else, and even putting together a shadow Taliban government. Who is he? He was a former prisoner of ours at Guantanamo Bay. We had him, we released him. And the lesson to be learned here is we've got to quit caving in to the ACLU crowd, get tough, and when we get these guys, make sure they never live to fight another day.
All right, a person to watch, Abdullah Zakir. Van Hipp, thank you very much. General Scales, thank you very much, sir. Good to have you both. Martha.